Welcome back to Inflection Point. I'm Kevin Connor, the CEO of the Retirement Planning Group. I've got my good friend here today, Tom Saboto, my partner in crime. We again are going to demystify a lot of the issues that go behind the scenes on succession and exit planning. And with that, Tom, let's jump right into it.
Well, great. I'm happy to be here again, Kevin. And I think we have a lot of information that we could share with our listeners. I hope they have some questions in their own mind to think about, right? Mm-hmm. I hope that they call us, obviously. That would be great. But again, we're here to provide answers, to be honest, to be transparent.
Pure transparent, yep.
To be transparent. And look, if you're an owner of a business, I could say, never think that you're not going to sell, right?
Right.
That is just not a good answer. You built a business, you should think about selling that business. Unless you have a succession, a family member coming into the business, but you have an asset that's worth something. You built it. This is just like any other business out there. You earned that right to sell this business. And your clients understand that.
It's probably their one of the, if not the largest, one of the largest financial transactions they will ever do in their life.
Correct. And your clients realize that, right? They're prepared for it. They know that this could happen someday. Being honest with them along the way to say, if I ever do it, I'm going to make sure I pick the right person, the right group that takes care of you, takes care of the legacy that I have with your children who are now my clients. So I think that's the honest answer that you should give them and give yourself.
So let's focus today on merging with a local firm and what are some of the benefits and what are some of the potential pitfalls of that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, when it comes to local mergers, right, those can become very difficult, right? Because first you have two egos involved, right?
Sure.
Everyone says, well, I thought I was merging.
Yeah, for sure. Like
right? I thought you were merging into me. Wait a minute here.
Failing to set those expectations
Correct,
up front,
right? And that goes to my earlier comment about if the merger is something you've been planning for a long time, then it probably works better. If it's a merger that it's like, hey, today I woke up and I'm not healthy as I used to be. I should think about doing something. I have a health issue, or my wife or my husband said today, you promised me you'd get out of the business, and now you're trying to find that perfect partner in a short period of time. That's when the failure rate increases, when you're compressing this into a short timeline. So if you're going to plan it out as a merger and you have years and years and years of knowing who that successor could be, I think it's a great story. If it's quick, you got a lot of people to keep happy.
But yeah, well, even, there's no doubt about it. When we started looking at maybe doing a local merger with another gentleman literally in Kansas City, that conversation went on for a decade.
Yeah.
And never got anywhere. And that's not uncommon, I don't think. I think a lot of advisors talk about maybe merging with a local firm. To your point, sometimes it happens really quickly because one day they're tired of doing the compliance. And it just so happens this other firm maybe already has someone dedicated to compliance. So it feels like, okay, there could be some synergy here. But as the more I thought about doing local merger, I realized I wasn't going to solve really any of my long-term problems. I was going to add complexity to it. Some of the things we talked about last time was, could a second generation advisor actually afford to buy the business? Okay. And
the same thing applies with a merger.
Well, it's no different. You
right?
just delayed it. You've actually made things more complicated because let's say you're merger of equals and it's 50-50. And it's more complicated if you're not merger of equals. If you're smaller and you're trying to merge into somebody that's, 50% bigger than you and it's a 30-70 split at the end of the day, that's far more complicated. But let's say it's a merger of equals in terms of size of firm. Are both of the advisors merging together the same age? Because if they're the same age, they've just really hooked their life rafts together out in the ocean and say, boy, it feels a lot better to be hooking my life raft to somebody else instead of bobbing around out here by myself. Right. And there's no doubt about it. There's some succession help there. If someone's raft went flat and they sank, there's somebody there to take over the business. But it's ultimately, now we have two decision makers that if we're getting to an exit and we're the same age, we're getting to an exit down the road, are both of them looking to exit at the same time?
Yeah.
You know, was a second generation advisor promised something in the first firm and the second firm didn't have that? There's some conflicts that start to arise in there. It's doable, no doubt, but it doesn't always, it feels good because you feel like you're being proactive.
It's complex. It's two people who run two different businesses that now have to really look, they've got to be so aligned on how to run this business moving forward, because whoever is the lesser of equals in this merger is not getting fully monetized out through this merger, right? There's still capital on the table that they're going to have to wait to get paid on, because typically the merger is not producing a complete monetization for that other party in the process.
Yeah, there are some moving components of it. I remember when we were looking at it, you know, we had a front office support person and they had a front office support person, and we weren't going to need both front office support people. So there was some
redundancy. Right.
Yeah, and so we figured out pretty quickly, like, okay, this feels good. The life raft hooking together feels like a good concept. My experience in life, concept and execution are two totally different things, right? The concepts are often very good. The execution of it is where things can get really, really messy. And, you know, so you have those cultural things. Who's in charge? You know, you can't have two captains on the ship steering the you know, in charge of the rudder. And that has to be someone willing to let go. I think where succession of a local merger can work is when there are not merger of equals in terms of age, okay? You can bring somebody younger in, but the thing that I think somebody has to be very careful about is, does that advisor coming in, have they been running a practice or a business? Because there's two totally different things.
Two totally different.
Right, you know, a practice is like, I'm really good at it, I like meeting with clients, I have one assistant, I've got a great practice. A business is process, procedure, career path, setting goals, driving the business forward. That's much different. If you're bringing in somebody who is running a business and you're running a business, and that individual's got more runway in terms of their career, you know, they've got many more years. And the most important thing, you've had the discussion early on. How are you going to buy me out? And what is that going to look like? Because we see, you and I see this all the time. We had, again, this was on the East Coast, another firm, and we determined it wasn't a good fit for the retirement planning group. There was another advisor that this is a self-contained RIA firm. They had some tax work they were doing within it. They had the founder, a junior advisor in it. The junior advisor wasn't going to be able to take over. If you remember, he was kind of almost part-time. Mm-hmm. And then he'd identified somebody, this is what was actually bonkers to me. He had identified somebody at a local broker-dealer that was going to leave the broker-dealer,
right,
set up his RIA. Now, keep in mind, that's fine. The broker-dealer is doing a lot of work and providing a lot of value for that advisor. When they jump out of that umbrella, there's a whole set of new things coming at the heir apparent that this guy was considering. And that's actually the route he ended up going. And we didn't feel like it was going to be a good fit, obviously. But those are really things you got to get out in front of, because that particular advisor that we were talking to, he was 70.
Right.
He's bringing an advisor that's never run a business, but he's been an advisor inside underneath another umbrella. He's coming out starting his own firm. Then they're going to merge them together, and he's going to take over.
Well, and I believe that person was in his mid-50s who was going to be the other person, right? So, you know, by the time that other transition happens, that new advisor who's coming from that broker-dealer is now starting to think about retirement himself.
Yeah, it's a tricky situation, and it's hard to pull off. I'm not saying it's not impossible, but there's a lot of moving parts to it, and I think it's good for advisors to understand. You know, I've used the life raft analogy a couple of times, but the things that often feel really good aren't always the best course of action for the business.
Or things change.
Yeah.
Right? You have someone that says, look, I've found a successor and I've been speaking with this person. We're going to merge together. We've been talking about this for 10 years, right? But then life changes. All of a sudden you get into that 8th or 9th year and you're thinking this could happen, but now the other person says, things have changed for me.
Yep.
I don't have the passion any longer for this. It's not fun any longer. I don't want to deal with regulation that we've had to deal with in the last 8 or 9 years that you and I first started talking. So things change. And I get calls like that all the time where someone says, I thought I found the person I was going to merge with, but we realize now it's just not feasible. It's not going to happen. We've both changed along the way.
Yeah.
But it was good that that person was there, because if something happened to one, the other one could have stepped in. But now's the moment of truth, right? Can it happen or can it not happen? And with life changing, oftentimes you have to change with it.
So Tom, we've obviously talked about, as I mentioned a second ago, the difference between concept and execution. Two wildly different things. We gave some of the the downsides or some of the pitfalls of trying to do a local merger. I do want to address that, it is possible to do a local
Certainly.
merger, and firms do this all the time.
Absolutely.
The advice I would give them, and where I've seen it be successful, is the advisor has to start with the end in mind and write down what their goal is out of the merger, all right? And then anybody they're considering merging with needs to do the same thing. And there has to be really solid alignment there for what each is trying to accomplish. If they're both looking for exit plans, and this is just tying two rubber rafts together, it's not going to work.
Yeah, and I think it's perfectly okay for someone who has been thinking of merger to also look at the other options, right? Because you should, right? You have a family to think of, right? You have people you made promises to along the way. So merger may be one road to take, but maybe another road is the path of least resistance also. Could be that a complete sale is better than a merger. But you have to find the right partner, right? I think that's what we're here to talk about. Some of the things that you do in your acquisitions make a lot of sense for someone who is trying to find that right balance. So I always think if you're the owner of that business, look at various options to make sure which one makes the most sense for where you are in that point in life.
It's interesting you bring it up. When we've acquired businesses in the past, some secrets to make it go well, right? The secret is you've got to get your clients to make the move, right? And part of that is keeping all the moving parts keep as many moving parts to a minimum as possible. So we really work to try to, give all the value and upside that the clients are going to get by joining the retirement planning group, just as an aside. And I think whether it's us or somebody else, these are the things they need to be looking for. It's interesting. We almost in so many ways feel as when we're bringing firms in as a merger. I mean, there's some things we absolutely, we need to build in as a part of our client experience. But it's made for some easy transitions, I think, for advisors that have joined us that would have, they would have the same challenges on a local merger, but they de-risked a lot when it came to the financial side of things.
Yeah. Well, I think something that helps, to the benefit of the seller in your case as a buyer is that you're multi-custodial, right? That makes it easy for a seller. TRPG is using Schwab and using Fidelity and using Pershing, right? So that's where the bracket of the RIAs out there are custodied. So they also have to think about the transition of that merger. Are you both on the same platforms? Are you using the same technology? Whose technology is going to be overlaid onto the other? And what's that going to take? So I think you provide a good solution because you have all of those answers already, planned out way ahead, and it makes for a smooth transition for the clients, which is the most important thing, and then the staff.
And the advisors and the staff, too.
And the advisors.
Yeah. No kidding. So you bring up a great point. I really wasn't prepared to even talk about this, but you hit something that's really important. The technology stack for each of the firms, right? What are you keeping? What are you not keeping?
Right.
You have to start, when you do a merger, a local merger, true merger, you have to sit down and go, okay, well, I have my goals all lined out, and they align perfectly with the firm I'm thinking about merging with goals. Okay. Now I've got to go through a technology stack. Okay. Well, what are we keeping? What are we getting rid of? Well, hold on. I've been using this CRM for 20 years.
Right.
Oh, no, I've been using this CRM for 20 years. I don't want to go to yours.
I was going to say, how many times have we spoken with business owners that said, no, I built something really unique, right? Yeah. And I have to keep that, right? Or I have a special process
it was an absolute deal breaker.
No one else probably has. Well, that's probably because they haven't really examined the landscape out there to know that, you at your firm might have surpassed what ability they have to create something or build upon it, right? You're at $2.5 billion, almost getting close to $3 billion. If this is $100 million, $200 million, $500 million company that is thinking of selling, the chances are that your tech stack is going to be a little bit better than theirs.
Well, I'm lucky in that capacity because I have an entire operations team. And they're constantly reevaluating the technology that we have in the company and how do we make it better. I tell people this that join our firm all the time. You are free to ask here the question, why do you do it this way? And if somebody at the firm can't say because it's the best way, permission granted to rethink how we're doing things. And I share that with everybody that starts with us because I want them to feel empowered that we don't have sacred cows here and we're always looking to improve what we're doing here. But to your point, so we're lucky and we have, you're lucky in that we have such a great team and departmental infrastructure within the firm. But that's not always the case.
What I'm impressed with on the prior transactions that we've done together is that you've always said to the seller, hey, you have a seat at the table, right? It doesn't mean that we're doing everything right. It means that if we're going to continue to grow, if TRPG is going to continue to grow, you want intuitive thinking people. You want people who are thinking about how could this be done a little bit better, right? And oftentimes you have to be open to someone else's suggestions.
Yep.
So what I enjoy is that you're not putting that seller in a box and saying, everything you've done in the past will never work here.
Right.
You're looking at it saying, you know what, we've thought about that. And maybe with you on board or your staff on board, we can actually implement that here. So there's a good positive outcome that could happen in every sale or acquisition that you do that brings something new to the company.
Yeah, and so, once you work through tech stack issues on a merger or an acquisition for that matter, then you've got to look at the cultural issues, right? We touched on this a couple minutes ago. Cultural issues can be, we have two people that are, in more of an administrative role, and we would need both of them, okay? Or we have one person doing compliance half time and another person at this firm doing compliance half the time, and we're gonna figure out who can do that full time. Well, do either of the people at each of the firms, would they enjoy doing compliance full time? I'm picking on compliance, but this is in every role. In most of the firms that that you and I are talking with, whether they're 100 or 200 or 300 million dollars, and I've been there, where they're wearing 16 different hats. You often have the founder who's doing the balancing the books. Once a year having to look at what are the health insurance benefits, go through human capital or HR issues, looking at the tech stack. All of these are roles that people are wearing these hats at the firm. And so when you stack up the number of hats that each individual is wearing at each firm, and then how are we going to reshuffle these hats when they come together? That's more job specific, less culture, really.
Well, it's culture, and I would think that, like in your case, when you, TRPG, are the acquirer, you're actually talking to that seller and saying, look, tell me what that role really means to you.
Yeah, what do you love to do?
Because everyone has different nomenclatures and acronyms that they use for certain roles, right? which means it just sounds different, but it's probably the same as someone else's. But in your case, you might provide the other employees in that company that's selling to you an opportunity to move into a different role, right? Maybe that person in their current firm, there is no upward mobility because it's a smaller RIA or a smaller practice, right? But in your firm, someone might say, well, look, I would love to do that. That's really my background. I kind of fell into this role, but my passion is really marketing. So right? Now I'm a client service relationship manager, but my passion's marketing.
Yeah, that's the ultimate succession and exit planning. That's when you hit the trifecta of a great outcome, where you give, whether it's a merger of local or a full acquisition, where you give your clients a better opportunity at better services, okay, that are hard to provide when you're a $100, $200, $300 million firm. It's hard to compete out there. You give your staff, this is where you really get, massive upside. When you're going through this, you have to go sell this to your clients, and you have to sell it to your team. This is moving cheese. And all of a sudden you're thinking about, and they've been wondering, well, how much longer is he going to do this? And what's going to happen to me? And when you're able to go into to your staff and say, look, I found a great firm and we're merging for these reasons. And, if the advisor's here and he's working with a smaller subset of clients, and that advisor is going to get an opportunity to work with larger, more complex cases. Or you have the marketing person who only gets to dabble at it part-time, but will potentially be in a role where they could do it full-time. And they could see career progression. That's part of selling and having to evaluate what's the best thing for the company. And again, that can happen at a local merger. That can happen bringing a junior advisor in. I think it's very difficult from my experiences. Or it can be through full acquisition. And so when you hit a better client experience with more services, a better upward progression and career opportunity for your existing staff, you're showing them that I'm looking out for your long-term benefit. That goes a long way. These people have been with people for a long time.
Even for the advisors, right, from the seller's company that's coming over to the new acquirer, if you put the fun back in the game, for the advisors who are going to stay with, for example, in your case, they're going to stay with TRPG, right? The fun can come back in the game because they're not dealing with paperwork. They're not dealing with regulations.
They're shedding the hats that they didn't want to have to wear.
You're telling them, look, I'm going to give you the easy button. Just go out there, keep your clients happy, do things that you enjoy in the interaction with your client, right? Go out and raise new assets if you'd like.
If that's what you want to do.
If that's what you want to do, go out and raise new assets, right? And we're going to give you the easy button, right? Let us do all the rest of the heavy lifting. That means your staff at TRPG. They'll do the heavy lifting. The advisor can have a great life and really enjoy whether they now want to stay 2 years, 5 years, 10 years with you.
So when you're looking at the merger side of things, right, the other thing I think to consider in that list of things is what's the goal? My experience has been there's a lot of advisors out there that we talk to who have become bogged down over time by their success. They've brought on more clients, they brought on more clients, they brought on more clients. And as they've grown more successful, what has evaporated? It's their time. Their time. They can't go on vacation. They can hardly get a weekend without having to, work on some sort of client event. And that's what's been really exciting about at least what we're doing at the retirement planning group.
I spoke to someone exactly in that scenario 2 days ago. $200 million in assets, right? Why are we talking to each other? He says it's not fun any longer.
But you called me because you said he can only meet on Saturday,
right?
To do it do the first conversation.
He said I can only talk to you on Saturday because I don't even have time to eat lunch.
Yeah, to eat lunch. That's
during the week.
Yeah.
Right. And of course, I called him on a Saturday, and we had a great conversation. And again, this person built a great business, but they've hit a point where they can't scale it, right? They are at a limit on what they could do personally, so they can't take on more clients because that's just going to add more pressure. So again, you can hit that point where the fun is gone, but maybe with a firm like yours, the fun can come back.
Well, I've seen it. I mean, I've watching the advisors that have joined us, and they get back to focusing on where their first passion was, right? Out of the gate, was helping clients solve problems. And now that they're living into that, it's reinvigorated them in many ways. I always tell the advisors that are joining us, I'm not chasing them out. You hear me say this. I'm not here chasing you out the door. This isn't we're looking to do an acquisition. When we're looking at a merger acquisition scenario, it isn't we're looking to chase the advisor out the door.
Yeah. Well, do you remember the acquisition you did of a good-sized RIA, and the seller? We said, well, you what do you want to do? And he said, well, I'm phasing out, right? And we said, well, okay, but we would like you to stay on as a consultant for a while, right? That scared that person. He said, consultant? Well, how much work am I going to have to do?
Yeah, he was on the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah, on the other end of the spectrum.
He wanted nothing to do with working.
And you said,
I'm not chasing you out the door.
I'm not chasing you out the door, and this is at your time, right? And you said to this seller, if you want to work 2 hours a day or you want to work 10 hours a day, that's your choice.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So, but in that case, we knew that this seller had a timeline involved.
The transition
his job
fully,
was making sure that his team of 5 advisors, right, were going to stay with the transaction. We're going to be happy with the new buyer, meaning you. And I know 6 months later, they're all extremely happy.
Oh, we got super fortunate to have found that firm. The advisors that have joined us are incredible.
Yeah.
And I've told you this and others, they're like kids in a candy store now because the additional services and things that we've been able to bring to the table.
Yeah.
And that's got to be part of the conversation. When someone's looking at succession, it doesn't need to be scary.
Right.
And I think a lot of times advisors default and gravitate towards, this feels scary, so if I do a junior advisor, that's my Band-Aid. If I do a local merge and have conversation with somebody, that's another Band-Aid. But a lot of times they aren't full-scale solutions.
Yeah, and I think, what I hear a lot about is that when people either call me or if I've had our team call them, they're afraid of complexity, right? They've gotten these calls. They tell me like, oh my God, I've had 10 calls in the last month from someone like you who is looking to buy my business, right?
Yep.
But they also respond, but once I get engaged, it becomes complex, right? Now they're telling me, okay, but you're going to have to stay with us X number of years to get your earn out, right? We're going to expect growth if the business we just acquired, right? There's all these little bogeys that come into play. And a lot of these firms, they want the complexity to come out of it, right? Which is hopefully what we can educate them on. If they talk to you, maybe we take the complexities out of it. You're straightforward. You sat in the seat. You've sold your business. So you know what it's like to be a seller and all of the things that had to happen for you to become comfortable. I think that resonates with people because they're like, okay, he understands what I.
Yeah, I'm not a professional M&A guy at the end of the day. Like as I said in the first one of the other episodes, I started with a phone book and a card table and I started dialing. And so I understand what the grind looks like.
There are no phone books, by the way.
Well, back then there was phone books, but
I think if I handed my kid a phone book, they would wonder what it is.
Yeah. Well, we had a really good banter today on what does a local merger look like? What are some other things that you could consider? And I really look forward to diving into some of these other topics in future podcasts. Thanks, Tom.
Again, I'm happy to be here. I hope we can just give people straightforward ideas, things to think about, and also things not to be afraid about having that conversation, right? Conversation is free.
Yep, without a doubt.
So,
thanks, Tom.
Thank you.